Hi, Andy XL back with another podcast, NFXL podcast, I should say. Get my own branding right. Right. In this, I'm going to look at the MVP race and also the race for Offensive Rookie of the Year. So let's start with the MVP. Now, number one last week and still number one this week. Bit like my power rankings, I'm not going away from him just because of one bad week. Is Matthew Stafford? Yeah. He made three bad errors in this game, but he's still passing for 256 yards a game. Has 32 passing touchdowns. That's 2.66 per game, and it's still just throwing those four picks, even though he had two in the last week. So for me, he's the difference maker on the Rams team. Yeah, they've got Puka Nakua and Devontae Adams, Kyron Williams and Blake Corum doing well, the defense playing well. But Stafford is having a tremendous season. Just because he's had one bad week, let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. For me, he's still the leader in the MVP race right now. But moving up four spots from 6 to 2, and a guy I would, I might even vote for him at this stage if I held an MVP vote. Is Miles Garrett? He got just the one sack in week 13. That gives him 19 for the season. The NFL all-time record is 22 and a half by Michael Strahan and T.J. Watt. Although Al Baker unofficially had 23 for Detroit in 1978. So one again from here will get Garrett the record. So if he's breaking that type of all-time NFL record, surely he deserves at least a mention and to be taken as a serious contender for MVP. Without him, Cleveland, they've been bad anyway, but they would be Tennessee without him. Let's be honest. Right, Jonathan Taylor stays at 3. Um, Decent week for him this week. He's now, and I've always, when I've looked at the running backs in this list, I've always compared it to Saquon Barkley's um, season, excellent season of last year. So Jonathan Taylor now has 1,586 scrimmage yards, 17 touchdowns. That would put him on line for 2,247 yards compared to Barkley's 2,283, but would give him 24 touchdowns where Barkley had just 16. So he's still ahead of Barkley's schedule, really, overall, if you take both factors into account. So if he's having a better season than Saquon Barkley had last year, he's still in the race. But he and the Colts need to get their back to winning ways if he's to stay in this race. Moving up from 7 to 4, Christian McCaffrey. Now, same applies here. He's actually got more scrimmage yards than Taylor, 1,655. Um, but he's played a game more. So he would be on schedule for 2,164, which is like 119 short of Barkley's pace. And he's got 13 touchdowns, which would give him 17 for the season. And that would fall short of Barkley's, well, just bit Barkley's 16 of last season. So really, he's on schedule for the same season as Barkley had last year. Excellent as was, Barkley didn't win MVP. So McCaffrey's still got amazingly more to do after he returns from bye. But again, if you think where would the 49ers be without Christian McCaffrey this year? And that's a question that they really would not like to find the answer to. Right, Patrick Mahomes drops from 2 to 5. Now, here we go. The Chiefs lost to Dallas. So all of a sudden, Dak Prescott's a better quarterback than Patrick Mahomes. Give me a break. Even in this game, Mahomes was better than Prescott. Not knocking Prescott, but Mahomes was superb in this game. And he's really unlucky to be on the losing team. He's passing for 270 yards a game, 1.8 touchdowns a game, has thrown 7 picks, but has 29 rushing yards per game and has had 4 rushing touchdowns this season. So his stats back it up. But again, as I keep saying with these candidates, where would the Chiefs be without Mahomes? They've been nowhere. So the guy is just superb, and I'm not. When I read comments about Prescott outplayed Mahomes, well, just because his team won, that isn't the case. It's absolute garbage. Right. Anyway, It makes me so angry. I'm moving on before I get right. Drake May drops actually drops from 4 to 6, but he played really well this week. But it's more the fact that I'm seeing other candidates on the rise. Um, Now, May is passing, if Mahomes is passing for 270 yards a game, May is passing for 262 and a half, which is more than Stafford is. He has 1.8 touchdowns a game, the same as Mahomes, but fewer than Stafford. He's thrown 6 picks, more than Stafford, less than Mahomes. He rushes for 24 and a half yards a game, less than Mahomes, and he has 2 rushing touchdowns, fewer than Mahomes. So, yeah, he's having a great season, but when you match the stats up, Stafford and Mahomes are actually having better seasons. Right. Now, just to prove that I'm not anti Dak Prescott, I've put him in my list at 7. He wasn't in the list previously. And again, let's look at the stats. He's passing for 271.8 yards a game. That's the highest of any quarterback in this list. He's passing for 2.1 touchdowns a game, which only Stafford can beats in this list. He does have 8 picks, which is more than the other quarterbacks in this list, and none of them. Well, maybe with the Stafford, you can say Nakua and Adams, yeah, they match up with um, George Pickens and C.D. Lamb, but Matt Stafford doesn't have a tight end like Jake Ferguson. So Prescott has the best array of weaponry available to him. So he shouldn't. Did I say Stafford? I should have said Prescott. If I said Stafford, I meant Prescott. Prescott has the best array of receiving talent available to him. So if he wasn't topping the list of yardage and touchdowns, then he probably should be. But he's still having a really, really good season. So I brought him into the list at 7. Keep going, Dak. You might get higher. Jackson Smith and Jigba, I've dropped him from 5 to 8. He had his by far his quietest game of the season. And finally, teams seem to be looking at Seattle and saying, hold on a minute, why don't we just concentrate on stopping Jackson Smith and Jigba? Now he's got like the other elite quarterbacks in this league, he's now going to show that he can still produce when teams do that. But having said that, he's still averaging 114.4 scrimmage yards a game, 7 touchdowns, has 800-yard games. He's on target for a 1,945-yard season. Calvin Johnson holds the record with 1,964, and that came in 2012, which was a 16-game season. So really, to be a true holder of the record, Smith and Jig, somebody needs to go north of 2,000, and that quiet game has cost Smith and Jigba that. So if we're looking at Myles Garrett, who's looking to break an all-time record, and Smith and Jigba's looking like he might come up just short of doing that, got to bear that in mind in MVP candidates. Yeah. And one more I've just introduced into this list, but really the stats don't back it up. But with the Bears going so well, we've got to consider a Bears player for MVP, and you therefore go at the quarterback, Caleb Williams. But the Bears are more of a doing it via joint effort than one person being outstanding. But Caleb Williams, like I said, when you've got Prescott passing for 271.8 yards a game, May 262 and a half, Mahomes 270, Stafford 256. Williams is only passing for 226.8 yards a game. He has a humble, compared to the others as well, 1.4 touchdowns a game. They're all up in the high 1s, low 2s. He's thrown 5 picks. Matthew Stafford's only thrown 4. He does rush for 25 and a half yards a game and has 3 rushing touchdowns. So he's in a similar ballpark to Mahomes and May. But overall, he comes behind all of those. But if the Bears keep going, somebody's going to get mentioned for MVP from that team, and it's surely going to be Williams. So I've put him in at 9. Right, that's my MVP update. Let's have a look at Offensive Rookie of the Year now. And again, I've held a strong view for a while, and I'm going to keep going with it. Still at number 1 is Ashton Gionte. Now, let's look at what he's doing. 886 yards and 8 touchdowns on a struggling team where the O-line is just appalling, and he's a running back. He's still producing. He's got more yards and touchdowns than any other rookie this season, and he's on that team. So he's got to be the front runner for Offensive Rookie of the Year. I don't care how bad the team is. Just look at what he's doing. But moving up from 5 to 2, and now his nearest challenger is Roy McMillan of the Carolina Panthers, who after last week has now got 826 yards and 6 touchdowns. And the guy dropping down from 2 to 3, Emeka Egbuka, the other wide receiver vying for this honour, is now behind him in both yards and touchdowns. So McMillan is the number 2 and the best wide receiver for me this season. Quinshon Judkins drops from 3 to 4. He's got 846 yards and 7 touchdowns, and he's still playing well on a bad team. Trevayon Henderson drops from 4 to 5. He's behind 22 yards behind Judkins, and has 6 touchdowns, 1 fewer than Judkins. And then we've got Kyle Monangai, who's one of the quarterbacks, running backs, a bit like Henderson, who's only come into prominence from the midway point of the season onwards. So Monangai moves up from 8 to 6, but there's a bit of a gap between him and the front 5 because he's only got 688, only 688, I'll get it right, scrimmage yards and 5 touchdowns. And the same can sort of apply to Woody Marks in Houston. The team's on a roll. He's on a roll. 674 yards and 4 touchdowns now. And Tyler Warren drops from 6 to 8. As his production's dipping as the Colts struggle, 690 yards and 5 touchdowns is what Warren has. So really, I'm looking at those top 5 now, Jonte McMillan, Egbuka, Judkins and Henderson, thinking the winner might come from there. But there's still plenty of room to go for these offensive rookie of the year. And, one or two huge games from one of these and they could vault way up the list. Now, people have dropped out of this list this week. Aronde Gadsden, Hampton, the receiver, whose Christian name I've forgotten from the Chargers, Amarian Hampton, Harold Fanning Jr., Colston Loveland, Jackson Dart and Ja'Cory Crossgay Merritt have all dropped out of the list as then just not reaching the levels of the top 5. And really have got probably too much to do to get to those levels. Hampton, we keep waiting for him to return. He hasn't returned. So I see 8 contenders for offensive rookie of the year, but really 5 pulling away. So that's how I see those 2 races after week 13. Next up for me will be my weekly good week, bad week. Which teams had a good week, which teams had a bad week, who had the best week and who had the worst week. And who's pretty much irrelevant. So I'll come back with that in my next piece. See you soon.